My name is Jay Sugarman, and I want to welcome you to Museum Open House. This ongoing series features and highlights many of the outstanding museums and other cultural institutions. The main purpose of most programs is to inform viewers about current and upcoming exhibits, various programs, resources, and other opportunities that are available for the general public. Today, via Zoom, we're fortunate to have as our guest Chad Eric Smith. Chad is the Senior Director of Brands and Management for Mural Arts Philadelphia, the largest public art program in the United States and one of the most influential community-based mural initiatives in the world. Based in Philadelphia, it was founded in 1984 as part of the city's anti-graffiti campaign and has since grown into a powerful vehicle of artistic expression, community engagement, and social change. During the program, we're learning why and how Mural Arts Philadelphia came about and how it's grown, developed, and operates today. We'll find out about some of their engaging programs and in the process come to better understand and appreciate the importance and value of having public art in our communities. Let's start by meeting Chad and then hearing all about Mural Arts Philadelphia. Welcome, Chad. So delighted to be able to be here.
Thank you so much for having me, Jay. It's a pleasure.
I've been so impressed following Mural Arts Philadelphia for a number of years now, eager to hear much more about it and have you inform viewers. But before we jump right to that, I think it would be of interest if you just briefly maybe share a little bit more about your background, professional interest, and what your current position entails, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am actually a native of Washington, D.C. I moved to Philadelphia in January of 2020, 2 months before the pandemic hit. So
Mm.
the timing was it's interesting to say the least. But thankfully, I was able to get my foot into the door with a couple of part-time jobs that was in the organization's restorative justice department. So I was in the restorative justice department for a little over a year. And then I threw my hat in the ring for the Director of Communications and Brand Management position and have since kind of elevated to becoming a member of the executive team. My background is as an award-winning actor, filmmaker, and musician, as well as having background experience in higher education advocacy, as well as primary prevention of men's violence against women. And I'm also the president of the board of directors at Theater Horizon in Norristown, Pennsylvania. So
Mm.
I come into my role as a person who essentially whose entire experience, lived and professional and artistically, has been of a storyteller. And I oversee a range of functions, including communications, public relations, social media, digital content, merchandising, and public tours. And the organization has been around for over 40 years. And
Yeah.
so I think that my background, I graduated from the University of Pittsburgh with a degree in psychology. So my degree, my background in psychology, film, and nonprofit leadership, I think really helps inform the way that I help manage the brand of the nation's largest public art program.
Oh, it sounds like a perfect fit indeed. Can you take us back to 1984 and share with us a little bit how and why Mural Arts Philadelphia came about in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you mentioned in the beginning, 1984 is when it began as the Anti-Graffiti Network, which was a city initiative under then Mayor Wilson Goode. In fact, last year I got to meet with him and kind of interview him and learn more about kind of what drove him to do this. And he said that, graffiti was kind of plaguing the city. People were putting graffiti on cars and houses and churches. And he ran a campaign in which he said he would get rid of it. And he was the first Black mayor, and he won his election. And this followed, after Frank Rizzo. And he one of his first hire was Tim Spencer, the late Tim Spencer from the Mantua neighborhood, who became the executive director. And they recruited Jane Golden, an artist who was, on the West Coast, who came over, and she was, very kind of passionate about helping redirect the energies of young people. And so Jane Golden has been with Mural Arts since its inception. And it was, again, created as a response to graffiti, which was, again, viewed at the time as a public nuisance. We now, don't say we're anti-graffiti, we're not anti-anything, we're just pro-art and pro-uplifting and amplifying the voices of artists, and being able to advocate for the idea that when it comes to art and creativity, that sometimes is the recipe needed to try to help solve some of our most intractable social issues. So when Jane offered them a path to channel their creativity, these graffiti artists, into murals, that was kind of the beginning of the Mural Arts program. And so what started as a public safety intervention essentially transformed into this globally celebrated, public art program rooted in restorative justice, community engagement, and civic pride.
Fabulous, fabulous. We're fortunate to have a video clip that was produced for last year's 40th anniversary. Before we enjoy it, would you say a few words more about what it entails and just what sets Mural Arts Philadelphia apart from other initiatives?
Yeah, thank you for helping me frame it. Last year was our 40th anniversary. Every year, as part of my role, I create a theme that is meant to anchor the year and help us create kind of the messaging that we use throughout the year. And so last year, the theme that I authored was Roots and Reimagination, which allows us to reflect on our past 40 years, but also reimagine what the future of public art and civic engagement can be. And in a nutshell, I think the best way to describe what Mural Arts does, which is beyond the paint on the wall, is in the form of our brand positioning statement, which says that Mural Arts Philadelphia exists to provide transformative experiences, progressive discourse, and economic stimulus to the city of Philadelphia through participatory public art that beautifies, advocacy that inspires, and educational programming and employment opportunities that empower. And so this end of the year video that you're about to show not only shows how our work beautifies, inspires, and empowers, but also shows the journey from its inception.
Fabulous, fabulous. Well, let's take a break in our conversation and enjoy this video clip.
In 2024, Mural Arts Philadelphia reflected on 40 years of impact, embracing both our roots and reimagining what the future of the convergence of public art and civic engagement can be. From the foundations of the Philadelphia Anti-Graffiti Network, founded in January 1984, to transforming the city of Philadelphia into the world's largest outdoor art gallery, we have deepened our impact on neighborhoods citywide. Our roots are in the stories we honor, of justice, education, and community. But reimagination is how we continue to grow. Dozens of new murals sprouted across the city, representing our evolving vision, connecting generations and cultures. This year, we bridged past and future. In a historic election year, we encouraged Philadelphians to get out the vote with the creation of the city's first permanent voting-themed mural. And we celebrated community, boosted the creative economy, and spearheaded critical conversations about how to make the world a better place.
Murals are not just artwork, they're statements of identity and representation. They are statements of power. They transform spaces, individual lives, and by extension, they impact the civic life of the city of Philadelphia.
Join us in our mission to use art to create profound, positive, and lasting change. Together, we'll continue to beautify, inspire, empower.
That is fabulous. Inspire is definitely the word. Oh,
Thank you.
incredible to see just the number of murals that's been accomplished over time. Wow.
Yeah, it's very inspiring place to work. It's very rare in my experience to be able to live in a city where I can travel pretty much in any neighborhood and see the impact of my kind of day job, my 9 to 5 essentially, everywhere I go. But it's true, we are the mural capital of the world with over 4,000 works of public art. And we finally described the city as the world's largest outdoor art gallery. And so, in fact, USA Today this year said that Philadelphia was the best city for street art. And so that was a good honor for us to have that national attention.
Oh, well deserved for sure. Speaking of the neighborhoods and communities, how is it decided where new murals will go up, how certain communities are chosen, and just that whole process maybe of interacting with the community?
Yeah, participatory public art is kind of at the cornerstone of our mission, right? Our mission is through participatory public art, Mural Arts Philadelphia inspires change in people, place, and practice to make a more just and equitable Philadelphia. And that means having engagement with the community. And we're not folks who are just coming into the community and putting artwork up. Consent is very important, right? Um, there's various ways that walls are selected. Sometimes the owner of a building pretty
Mm.
much comes to us and says, "Hey, I have a blank wall, and I think it would be perfect, and I would love to work with Mural Arts." And then there's a negotiation about kind of what the budget would be and who the artist can be and what kind of theme that we want to try to emphasize. Other times we have an idea, we have an artist, and we have a design. We don't have a wall, but what we do have a lot of at Mural Arts are wall hunters. And so we have folks who drive around the city looking
Mm.
for good walls, and then they literally will ask the owner of the wall, "Hey, can we use your wall as a canvas?" And then when it comes to artists, artists receive, administrative, financial, and technical support, including access to project managers, community liaisons, wall prep teams, teaching artists, material resources, and this infrastructure allows them to focus on the art and the relationships that help put the art together. So, the process of selecting the artist varies as well. We may put
Mm.
out a request for folks to apply for a position. Sometimes there's more of a curatorial process where we select an artist that we think would be a good fit based on their past work. And so it really just depends on a variety of things, who the funders are, who our partners are, where the wall is, what the theme is, and what our overall goal is with the project.
Hmm. That's a nice overview. How does Mural Arts Philadelphia deal with sensitive or difficult historical topics,
Mhm.
social issues?
Yeah, well, I would say very thoughtfully. There's a lot of discussion about how best to ensure that the projects associated with our organization and with our brand aligns with our values. I just want to go back to your previous question and just say that, murals are often, requested by the communities themselves, right?
Ah,
Community groups, nonprofits or residents. And so our staff evaluates the feasibility of it, right? Wall condition, visibility, accessibility, and how the project aligns again with our values. So neighborhood needs and histories guide our placement choices. And when things are sensitive, then we try to make sure that the discussion around the topic is done in a thoughtful manner. We try to not be too political. We are the Mural Arts Advocates, or our actual 501c3 name. So we are often advocating for things, not necessarily activists. There's a distinction with a difference, and but we are mostly in the business of trying to amplify various topics of discussion that's important to the communities for which we feel we serve.
could you share maybe a specific, I know there are so many, example of a
Mhm.
project that had a measurable social or emotional impact on a neighborhood?
Yeah, so many of them. I mean, I can start with Dr. J mural, right? Like that is a
Mm.
mural that, from the early days, and is still revered. In fact, I think it's one of the few murals that have never been tagged by graffiti artists, seeing
Wow.
Dr. J in a suit. And it was also the first project in which we used the parachute cloth process, which is the process that allows for us to take essentially this cloth material into a church or into a prison or into a schoolyard or into a library to allow folks to be able to paint by color and paint by number, as opposed, and then you glue it up onto the wall and you paint over it
Mm.
and hide the seams, so that it is kind of a perfect, uh, you know, mural of what you intended to do. That's a good one just because of how it was a great role model for young people, and particularly to see him in a suit rather than in
Mhm.
his basketball gear, I think creates another paradigm shift in people's minds. But, I could talk about so many various individual projects. I think sometimes where I think is even more interesting for folks is to hear about our programmatic efforts. So, for
Please.
example, our restorative justice department has focused on using art as a tool to combat recidivism. For those who are justice impacted. And that was the department I began in. So that's the department I have a pretty good grasp on, and a place in my heart for, in which we work with folks who are returning citizens. We work with folks who are actually on the inside still, who are creative and artists, and allow them to be a part of the mural making process. And this usually helps, instill pride and productivity, but also gives folks this pathway towards a more productive contribution to communities for which they may have played a role in harming. And so the fact that we have had data that have said, for example, that our recidivism rate was 10% or something, like
Mm.
compared to the cities, shows that art can be a powerful force in changing the lives of individuals in the way that Jane Golden so passionately said in that video. But we also have our Porch Light program, which is a partnership, a collaboration between Mural Arts Philadelphia and the City of Philadelphia's Department of Behavioral Health and Intellectual Disability Services. And through that program, we have something called Color Me Back, which is the same day, same pay work program that allows folks to have the dignity of a job and help beautify public areas. So when you talk about that, you're talking about helping folks who may have challenges with mental health or have challenges with substances, or you're talking about with restorative justice, combating recidivism through our program, the Guild, or our education program, helping young people tap into their own creative potential and teaching them not only how to grow artistically, but also professionally and how to be entrepreneurs. I mean, it is really a scalable model for other cities around the country and the world to use public art in ways that I don't think people tend to think of as often as we do.
Speaking of that, have you had collaboration with other cities throughout the country or beyond, given the model that Mural Arts Philadelphia has for the public art?
Yeah, that is a great question, and that is because we actually have a, an arm of our organization called the Mural Arts Institute,
Mhm.
and their focus is solely dedicated on sharing knowledge, ideas, and experiences that have shaped our approach to community-centered art making. And so, at its core, our Mural Arts Institute seeks to build connections, sustain relationships, and share skills about the practices that have been instrumental in creating works of public art in Philly. And we work with artists, art administrators, community leaders across the world, really. I mean, we've traveled
Mm.
outside of the country to align knowledge, amplify voices, empower change, and distribute resources that move us all toward a more inclusive and equitable future for socially engaged public art, which, right now is needed more than ever, particularly in this country in which things like diversity, equity, and inclusion are being viewed as things of no value, or the idea of free speech being, attacked, even though it's foundational in our Constitution. And so, it's times like now where we don't want our work to be insular and be just in the city of Philadelphia. We want the whole country and the whole world to know just how powerful and impactful art can be. And can I just say this too, that part of why I get so passionate about this is because it allows me to talk about all these different things
Yeah.
that one might not think you could talk about when you're just talking about public art. But that's the power of it, right? Is that you can have a conversation about, you know, governments and about, free speech, and you can have and about recidivism and about behavioral health and about young people and about knowledge sharing, and have art be the vehicle for social change. And so I think part of our mission is to elevate the discourse, to make what we do be viewed and felt as esteemed as the artwork that exists behind walls at museums, for example.
Most definitely, most definitely. You mentioned the sort of research you've done with recidivism. Do you have other ways of measuring the social impact on the communities that murals have gone up on?
Yeah, we do a lot of reports. In fact, I would say that the Mural Arts Institute has done a lot of kind of research based work that focuses on specifically how our impact is measurable and how there's kind of the qualitative aspect to it, but there's also the quantitative data. And I think that is part of how we've been able to exist for so long. Is it because we were able to show, city government, for example, who have, the power of the purse and the power of the pen, how our work actually does, provide economic stimulus, by putting money into the pockets of artists, for example, and adding to the creative economy. So, yeah, on various topics that we have our tentacles on. Uh, there are kind of data centric things that we can kind of point to that I think just kind of strengthens our case.
Is there a program or approach that Mural Arts Philadelphia does to maintain older murals?
That's a good question. We refer to that as restoration.
Mm,
We often, try to ensure that we have a budget set aside for folks going out and being able to clean. Shout out to our operations crew. Although, I have to say that we're always looking for uh, more money. Just to be candid, I mean that we are a nonprofit. We're part city, part nonprofit, but the more kind of discretionary, unrestricted funding we can have, the more that we can kind of upkeep this portfolio of public art that is challenging when you have so much of it all across the city and they're so accessible to, the weather and wear and tear and, potential taggers. And
mm,
so yeah, we do have kind of a restoration team, but in my opinion, it's not as resourced financially as would be ideal. And so, that's part of the reason why we have fundraisers. For example, on
mm.
May 9th, we have Wall Ball, which is our biggest fundraiser of the year. And we're using the theme Restoring Hope, where art and
Ah,
justice meet. And so we're hoping that people buy tickets, come to learn more about that program, to learn about the organization. And then that will help us be able to continue to be stewards of um, this kind of public art movement that we've been leading for the last 40 years.
wonderful, wonderful. As Mural Arts Philadelphia enters their next 40 years, what are some of your current or upcoming plans or projects that you're able to share at this time?
Yeah, we have so much upcoming. We have a new mural that's going to be dedicated in the coming weeks about teachers, and it's going to be kind of associated with Abbott Elementary, the award-winning mockumentary sitcom. And we actually were featured on their show back in 2023, which was one of the highlights of my career as someone who has brand management in their title. To have over 2 million viewers watch an episode called Mural Arts. And so we're excited about that mural. We have a lot of projects between now and the end of the calendar year, but 2026 is on the horizon, and that's the nation's 250th anniversary. And so, obviously, being here in Philly, kind of where it all began,
Mm,
means that we're going to be spending a lot of time for the remainder of this year
mm.
preparing to have projects next year as part of those 250th celebrations. One of them is printmaking by the people. And that one, have you heard about that one?
I read a little bit, but just a few words in closing, please.
Yeah, exactly. So, printmaking by the people is a project that's going to be featured. And one of the questions that is being posed to participants is, what would the Declaration of Independence say if it could be written today?
Mm,
What visions do Philadelphians have for the promise of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? And so, with the 250th anniversary, this citywide project will feature discussions about essential aspects of freedom, the importance of printing and communicating and mobilizing during the Revolutionary era, and the urgency of poster making as a means of advocating for change. And so I think that's one in particular that is an important one to highlight. But there's so many more that I would just tell people to go to muralarts.org to find out more, and to follow us on social media at Mural Arts.
terrific, terrific. Well, those contact points will be in the closing credits, which is where we're reaching right now. So, Chad, I want to thank you so much again for taking the time to be here. So informative, so inspiring, and continued success with your efforts and others with Mural Arts Philadelphia in the years to come. Look forward
Thank
to
you.
finding out more. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Also want to thank those of you watching for joining us and hope you'll be able to tune in next time.